Thank you very much. My name is Mark Buell, and I have the distinct pleasure of serving as president of the Recreation and Park Commission. Oh, thank you, Nancy. No. And on behalf of Mayor Ed Lee and the Recreation and Park Department, we would like to welcome you here to a very special and appropriate event. Now, as someone said to me, this looks like the beginning of summer today. Just perfect. And we will hear from her later, but we honor a woman today for her 25 years in Congress. And what could be more appropriate than to name a major artery in one of our most beautiful assets, where you can reach the AIDS Memorial Grove, you can reach the Academy of Sciences, you can reach the Japanese Tea Garden. All of these things reflect the passion and the wisdom that Nancy Pelosi has brought to the Congress with her sense of social justice. I particularly like thinking that she is science-based in the legislation that she supports, and we have the Science Academy. Thank you very much. There's so many things she's done for the city. I know that there are representatives from the National Park here today and the Presidio Trust. She is the author of that legislation which saved that pristine piece of property. I could list them forever. Some of them I've been intimately involved in, but that would take too long. But I would say one of the great honors I had was being in the balcony of the United States Congress the day she was elected Speaker of the House, the highest elected woman in the history of the government. With that, I'm going to ask a few people to say a few words here today. Before I do that, and you'll enjoy this, I was given a list of the VIPs to introduce. Well, if I look at everybody sitting here, you're all VIPs. So, yes, yay, thanks, Art. Exactly. So you're all going to have to just swallow a little hard when your name doesn't get mentioned, and I'll give you the list that I have here, okay? We're honored to have Ambassador Jim Hormel here today. I have about 10 of them, so I'm going to go through them and you hold your applause. City Attorney Dennis Herrera, Police Chief Greg Suhr, Arturos PUC, Jose Cisneros, our Treasurer, Sophie Maxwell, former Supervisor, there she is, also a member of the America's Cup Organizing Committee. I want to put that in there. We have Megan Leviton from the Recreation Park Commission. We have Larry Martin from Rec and Park. We have Mimi Silbert here from Delancey Street, the VIP of all VIPs. And I see a lot of friends out there, and I know you all hold titles. Leroy King, an institution at the Redevelopment Agency. Jane Morrison. I could go on, but here is where I stop. Oh, and Cecil Williams, of course, and I saw Cecil. Bless you, Cecil. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you the first speaker of the day, and I have a few things to say about him. John Burton. And here's what it says officially. Widely considered one of the most effective and experienced legislative leaders in the state of California, if not the nation. So let me tell you just a few things that John has done. He began his career as Deputy Attorney General, served as the President of the Young Democrats, won election to the County Central Committee, then served as a state assembly member, president of the California Democratic Council, chair of the California Democratic Party, which I believe he is today, and U.S. Congress member, and president pro tem of the California State Senate. Whew. Now, my favorite story about John is one that Willie Brown told me. He said one of John's constituents left a message, and John called the constituent back, and the constituent listened to, made her case, and then heard from John. And at the end of the conversation, after John hung up, she called Willie, and she said, Willie, I just got the worst conversation from John Burton. He used words I would never use. And Willie said, well, you ought to be thrilled he called you back. With that, I would like to introduce to you the Honorable John Burton.
Yeah, anybody really believe anything Willie Brown ever tells them? I don't. Anyway, thanks, Mark. Anyway, it is a pleasure and an honor to be here. is a guy who grew up in the Sunset and spent an awful lot of time in the park. And to have Nancy Pelosi in between John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King Jr. isn't a bad place to be. I'd like to say that. And that is, for those of us that follow hockey, that is a real hat trick. But it's 25 years ago or a little bit more when we were involved in a congressional campaign. And I don't know, I think we all thought we were going to win, but I don't know if we ever thought that 25 years later we would be naming part of Golden Gate Park after Nancy. But if we look back on those 25 years, everything that she did, everything that she stood for, it's just been a blessing for all of San Francisco and actually for the country. And I don't really want to one-up Mark, but you know, when he was so proud to be up there in the balcony, I got to be on the floor. Anyway, Nancy, it's a real pleasure and an honor, and to have so many of your friends here, and a lot of them I see that were there 25 years ago, and they're still there with you, and we're going to be with you as long as you want us to be. So again, congratulations.
Thank you, John. And the next gentleman I'd like to introduce, I had the pleasure of introducing him once in Washington when Nancy helped us with the America's Cup. We had to get a piece of legislation through the Congress, which she did very ably, but I introduced him by saying if you had his resume, you couldn't help but be one of the great mayors of San Francisco. He began his career representing those who couldn't represent themselves in the community. He went on to the Human Rights Commission. He went on to head just about every department in the city and then become city administrator, and now elected to a full term as the mayor of San Francisco. He's passionate about jobs. He's passionate about neighborhoods. He's passionate about parks, which I love, and he's making great strides in this city in bringing us back to where we belong, the Honorable Ed Lee.
Thank you, Mark, and I'm also passionate about our leaders. And I want to thank everybody for being here, named VIPs and unnamed VIPs. But thank you very much for joining all of us today as we recognize and celebrate the work of a great San Franciscan, one who's represented, advocated, and fought for San Francisco, its citizens, and really for all of America. You know, during her 25 years, Nancy's really earned her title as leader, as pioneer, doing everything from saving American jobs to our health care, to driving our country towards energy independence. And I still am feeling today, after we go through all these different transportation and infrastructure projects that we've been so lucky to start in the Bay Area. A lot of it goes back to Nancy and her leadership on the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act for our country, and really helping us get back on the move. And we've taken full advantage of these things, as we should. And so I want to thank all of you for being here to celebrate with us on that. And you know, she's been such a mover of our country, and we know that. We felt the direct impact here as citizens, and I felt it. And I know for myself, when I was faced with these huge deficits in our local budget, and knowing, obviously, the right thing to do would be to fill some of these gaps that perhaps the state and federal government is unable to. But I know this, particularly these last 2 years, that as HIV funding was getting cut and a number of programs were dismantled, I just had to remind myself to look at the leadership that Nancy Pelosi has provided with so many of her and so strong of her advocacy, that it was much easier to say in balancing our local budget here that we will do the right thing, and we will make sure that the funding for people who are living with AIDS and HIV get that protected funding, whether or not the federal and state programs are there. And thanks, that's again another compliment to Nancy's leadership. You know, from Bayview to Bernal Heights, Chinatown to Castro to the Mission, Marina, North Beach, and Noe Valley, Congresswoman Pelosi has transformed San Francisco for all throughout her 25 years. And it's really a strength to see so much of her work reflected in everything that we do. And I think just the marvelous jobs that she's done to handle the whole Presidio and the Natural Trust, and how many thousands of more people and other generations are welcoming that preservation, right down to cleaning up of our Hunters Point Naval Shipyard. And now, look, it's on the very verge of just coming back and reinviting and keeping as many families there to welcome in success for them as well. Again, all of this due to her wonderful leadership. And so it is my pleasure to honor Leader Nancy Pelosi today with the renaming of Middle Drive to Nancy Pelosi Drive in San Francisco. Yeah, and I know Johnny has said earlier where it falls. I also think it's very fitting that Nancy Pelosi Drive also runs past our National AIDS Memorial Grove. Obviously, she's been a driving force in Congress for AIDS funding. She's educated so many other leaders of country about this disastrous disease and how we can help so many people recover from it. She's created the housing opportunities for people with AIDS, and of course, her support and ongoing support for the Ryan White Care Act. She's always leading the way. So, Nancy, if I may, a couple of presentations. As mayor, of course, it's always my pleasure, because, when you give somebody their own drive, they're going to have to pay for parking somewhere. Well, this will help her get past that. Nancy Pelosi Drive Day in San Francisco. Her own day here. And if I may, on behalf of our Recreation and Park Department, its wonderful commissioners, but really on behalf of all of us here who have been lifelong friends, supporters, people who have served with Nancy so much, it is my pleasure, Nancy, to provide you with a replica of the signs that will go up on behalf of our city. Nancy, congratulations, and here it is.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. This is a highly emotional moment for me to see this. When I heard about it, I said, no, please don't do that. I'm embarrassed. Please don't do that. Until I heard it was between JFK and MLK Jr. Drive, and then I thought, well, I would like to go there and bear witness to the greatness of those two men and bring all of you with me, and here we are today. Thank you, Mayor Lee, for your tremendous leadership of our city. It's an honor for me as the first, with lots of firsts around here, the first woman Speaker of the House to be receiving this honor from the first Chinese American mayor of the city of San Francisco. A source of great pride to us, but only begins to tell the story of what the mayor means to our city and the progress he has made in already a very short time. You honor me with this award, Mr. Mayor. I'm forever grateful to you. And again, I look forward to continuing our work together for the betterment of our city. And San Francisco, as you know, leads the way. So what we do well here, as Franklin Roosevelt said, if you want to do something well, do it in San Francisco, or words to that effect. I would thank John Burton for being here. Just on a personal, official, and political note, John, my dear, dear friend, was the chairman of my campaign 25 years ago. That was really an experience. A winning one. I'm so honored that John took the time. He doesn't go that many places, right, Mimi? I mean, the very idea that he's here in the middle of the afternoon dressed for the day. I'm going to be in big trouble. More on John in a moment. I also want to thank Paul Ginsberg. Thank you very much. Phil Ginsberg. I know it's Phil. I'm thinking of my husband. Phil Ginsberg, for your leadership and for making this all possible. I know that Megan Levitin is here. I used to bring her to the park with my daughter Nancy all those 40 years ago. And Larry Martin, a member of the commission, and please extend my thanks to the other members of the commission as well for this great honor. So here we are, 25 years later. I'll talk about that, but this relationship with our family in the park goes back more than 40 years, and I'll talk about that as well. But over the past 25 years, working with 6 mayors, Senator Feinstein, Agnos, Jordan, Willie Brown, who may be joining us momentarily, with Mayor Newsom, and now with our great leader, another great leader, Mayor Lee. I've had the privilege of working with these mayors to do many of the things that the mayor described. But none of that would have been possible without the work of so many of you here. I'll tell you this story. Some of us were on a trip to Liberia for our colleague, the newly deceased Donald Payne, but this was a few years ago, and he was being honored. They were building a library in his name at the African Methodist Episcopal Church in Monrovia, Liberia. It was boiling hot, the reverse of it, boiling hot. And there must have been 18 or 20 speakers, and everybody who got up named every speaker before him and everyone else in the room. So one of the people got up there and he said, "To all of the distinguished people who are here today, honors granted." And everybody cheered because that meant he wasn't going to mention all the names again. But I am so honored that so many of the official family of San Francisco are here. I'm delighted to be my sister in friendship and my sister in Congress, Congresswoman Anna Eshoo, is here with us today. Thank you, Anna. And as Anna knows, that none of the things that we were able to accomplish, whether you're talking about AIDS or housing or transportation or you name it, without the work of our colleagues from the Bay Area, from California on these issues. In a political sense, Jim Hormel and Leroy King were co-chairs of my campaign, along with Madeline Haas-Russell. They were the 3 co-chairs. John was the chairman. We all took orders from John. I'm so glad that so many of our friends from organized labor are here. Tim Paulson, the head of the San Francisco Labor Council. Thank you, Tim. Now, let me say that some of you know, and I could name every one of you in reference to the issues that have been discussed, and you probably think that I will, but I told you my AME story. So here's the thing. 25 years ago, let's go back 25 and a half years ago, I had no thought in the world of running for Congress. I did care very much about the city. I had the position John now holds, but without all of his credentials, as chair of the California Democratic Party, but I never thought in terms of running for Congress. It was because of Sola Burton, a woman who decided that a woman was going to follow in her footsteps, that I decided to run. And I said at the time, the issues were, what do you think about health care, Mr. Mayor, when I go anyplace? Tell me what you think about health care for all Americans as a right, not a privilege. And I told them. They wanted to know what we would do to fight for more funding for HIV and AIDS, and I told them. The issue at the time about now marriage equality now, but then it was domestic partners. I remember Agar Jake said to me, "I have one question. Do you support domestic partners?" I said, "Yes, I do," and that was his litmus test. And we've come a long way since then because of the work of so many people. But again, it is Philip. Philip did so much for the parks in our country, the national parks. He was a hero in that regard, and some say he did more than anyone. Maybe he and Teddy Roosevelt or something like that. But anyway, it was a proud tradition to follow in. And the whole point was that we could go to D.C. and succeed with some of the things that the mayor mentioned, because what we were doing in San Francisco was a model to the nation. It was of national significance because it was community-based. whatever it happened to be, whether it was about HIV and AIDS, whether it was about affordable housing, was about transportation, whatever it happened to be, about job creation. And when I first went, I said, I'm just going to take a map of San Francisco and see how many jobs we could create. Remember Cecil? At that time, we just looked and said, where can we create jobs, whether it's housing, transportation, whatever the issue happened to be, how can we create jobs? Well, nature and the federal government gave us two opportunities. One was the earthquake, which provided an opportunity for change and some resources that would otherwise not have come for us to make some significant improvements in San Francisco. You know, the freeway, but the restoration of City Hall, the Gary, the list goes on. And I'm sorry Willie hasn't gotten here yet because he was a part of so much of that too. And then the base closures. Along came closure. We have 32 square mile, my district, that the whole city, 49 square miles, Mr. Mayor? 32 square miles is my district, 3 base closures. You would think in the whole country that they could have averaged it out differently. Was Hunters Point, Treasure Island, and the Presidio. And so that gave us an opportunity to think in a different, innovative way about public-private partnerships in a way that San Francisco once again led the way, taught the nation how to do things in a different way. And now that beat goes on. Every initiative we had in the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act was something that worked here because we are a model. We know how to get things done. So we not only helped ourselves, we helped the country. About this park, this is very personal. I look at the Academy of Sciences, and my kids, Christine will tell you, who is here with Bella, Christine Pelosi, and my son, Paul Pelosi. Where are you, Paul Pelosi Jr., over there? We used to come here when they were toddlers and run through the halls of the Academy of Sciences and the planetarium and the aquarium and to the Japanese tea garden, as Mark said, and all of that. Little did we know that 40 years later, this would be happening and there'd be grass growing on the roof of the Academy of Science for the thermal management of the planet. But science, 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 as Mark said. We came here to learn at the Academy of Sciences. We came here to play in the park. We came here to smell the flowers. Naomi Lauder, Barbara Sklar, you remember this in Mimi. She used to put out the word, the rhodos are here. That meant the rhododendron have blossomed. So we'd all flocked. Anybody who knows this park knows what a beautiful occasion that is when the rhododendron come out. So we come to smell the flowers and then listen to the music. Over time, it was always wonderful, never as wonderful as when Warren Hellman blessed us with his Strictly Bluegrass and then hardly Strictly Bluegrass. Thank you, Nancy Bechtel, for, where's Nancy? Right, where did Nancy go? Right there, Nancy. And isn't it wonderful that Warren Hollow is right nearby? So we came to learn, we came to play, we came to listen to the music, to smell the flowers. We came to recreate, and to my friends, all of that, to recreate. That's a very important word, and your assignment, your role is such an important one. But think of that word, to recreate. Said another way is to recreate. It's really important to the life of a person and a community that people renew themselves and restore themselves, recreate as they recreate. So this is something so important to the life of our people in our city and our community. And so wonderful that we're near the National AIDS Memorial Grove. National. When that was established, Anna was there. She helped us with all of this. And so some people say, well, I don't know why we have to have a grove for one illness or one disease. And then the others would say, well, I don't think you should do it because I think we should have it in our district. So that some didn't want us to have it, and the others wanted to have it for themselves. But we won out, and Nancy, we put it on the same bill. The Presidio Trust bill was leaving the station, so we put the National Memorial. So I'm not sure they all knew they voted for it, but that's how we got here in the first place with Philip and the Presidio. But so this is, again, I have pictures that I brought. When my kids were really small, really small, like, nearly 40 years ago, a photographer was we hired someone to record our family at the time, and he said, tell me what the most beautiful place, he wasn't from here, tell me what the most beautiful place is in San Francisco. And of course, we brought him to Golden Gate Park. So some of the pictures are there from that long time ago of my 5 children. And then we have some from just a matter of months ago when my grandsons were here for the Grove's anniversary, and then for my own just a matter of weeks ago when we had our work day at the National AIDS Memorial Grove. Right, Jack? Jack was there the whole time. And so I wanted you to see the time going by, how long our relationship is here, what this means. Imagine, I can't, it's hard for me to even grasp that this will be between JFK Drive and MLK Jr. Drive. I was at John F. Kennedy's inauguration as a student. I heard him say in that freezing cold day, much more freezing cold than this, what he asked us to do, to ask not what you can do, the whole thing. Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. He also said after that, but many people don't know, his very next sentence was, to the citizens of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what we can do working together for the freedom of mankind. And that sentence is something that has been really a beacon in addition to the original part of it. And then, so my father was part of his administration, and so I'm honored in the name of all of you and the people of San Francisco to bear witness to his work, and then Martin Luther King Jr. I was at the march, 1963, but guess what? I had to leave. I couldn't stay for the speeches. Guess why I had to leave? I was going home to get married. So Paul and I will be married 49 years at the beginning of September. That was April 28th, but the guests were coming in and I had to get going. But I did see the march come in and the just magnificence of it all. But to bear witness, and my brother Tommy, who then later became mayor of Baltimore, my father had been, he worked with Martin Luther King Jr. on equal accommodations, whether it was housing or restaurants or whatever it was in that transition time. So this is, again, a lot of history in making this a very emotional day for me. It's a wonderful honor. It's a wonderful honor. It's just unbelievable and staggering, and I'm only now beginning to accept it. But Mark Buell, I thank you for making this possible, for making so much possible in our community over and over again. That's why I was so honored you and Susie were in the gallery that day as we made history and now we make progress. But I want to thank you for all that you do. Every good thing that happens, you have a hand in, and I thank you for that. And I thank you for making this possible for me. It's about a city. The biggest honor of all is to walk onto the floor of the House of Representatives and speak for the people of San Francisco. San Francisco, where liberty and justice for all is what we care about, where non-discrimination and the rest is our hallmark, where we talk about the environment as God's gift that we must preserve. Every issue that you can name, the education of our children, creation of jobs for our workers, health care for all Americans as a right, not a privilege, income and health security for our seniors, clean, fresh air for our children to play and thrive, a world at peace in which we can all make our contribution. San Francisco is such a hotbed of it. And I say of it when I talk to my colleagues, I said, in our city, the beauty is in the mix. We have so many people who are so involved from so many different communities representing every religion, every nationality from around the world. And it is, that vitality is the strength of America. But as I said that day when Mark and Susie and others, many of you here, were up in that gallery, I said I'm here to represent San Francisco values. And I want to express them. I want to express them the way our patron saint expressed them, St. Francis of Assisi. His Song of St. Francis is our city's anthem. Make me an instrument of thy peace. Where there is darkness, may I bring light. Where despair, may I bring hope. Where there's hatred, love. I like the part about to forgive is to be forgiven. It's a wonderful anthem. It's about San Francisco values, and that's what I am. No honor is greater than representing San Francisco on the floor of the House, except maybe having your sign between Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy. Thank you all very much for this wonderful, wonderful honor. I just want to do a special shout out for Mimi Silbert because she's been with all of us every step of the way for every good thing that has happened in our community. What a great honor that you're with us today, Mimi Silbert. Thank you so much.
So before I ask the Women's Jazz Ensemble to conclude the program, at the risk of offending everybody, I'll announce a few more people I see in the audience that deserve a shout out, and that would be representing the Golden Gate National Recreation Area, Frank Dean, the superintendent. I have Greg Moore, who's the president of the Golden Gate National Park Conservancy, Craig Middleton, who is the executive director of the Presidio Trust, and Nancy Bechtel's been acknowledged. She's on the board of the Presidio Trust. And the guy I work for, chairman of the Presidio Trust, and co-chair of the Golden Gate Bridge 75th anniversary, which will be this Sunday night, and Phil Ginsburg, my boss, who's done so much to restore San Francisco parks, and we're going to continue to do that. So with that, thank you all very much for coming. It's a big, wonderful family when Nancy's involved, and with that, I'm going to ask the Women's Jazz Ensemble to conclude the program.
Stem, tua cucu, stem, 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 tua cucu, stem, tua cucu, stem, 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 tua cucu, stem, tua cucu, stem, 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 tua cucu, stem, tua cucu, stem, 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 tua cucu, stem, tua cucu, stem, 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 tua cucu, stem, tua cucu, stem, 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 tua cucu, stem, tua cucu, stem, tua cucu, de cucu, te, eo, de cucu, te, de cucu, te, eo, de cucu, te, de cucu, te,
Every time I heard that you want to leave me, every time I heard that you want to, all night I'm dreaming.
go 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 go, dead